Right then, today we're going to be looking at dividing with directed numbers. So that means we're dividing by positive or negative numbers. Okay, now there is a relationship between dividing and multiplying. I've done another video that shows multiplying. We'll cover how they're very similar in this video as well. First of all, in the first method I'm going to show you, we need to remember, I'm going to use this notation. So if I ever write that, a plus in brackets, that is a positive number. So it doesn't matter what the number is, it's just positive, so it's 1 or more. And if I ever write this, that is a negative number. So again, it doesn't matter what the number is, it's just less than 0. Okay, so let's imagine we have a positive number, and then we divide that by another positive number. Okay, for each of these I'm going to write them a second way. So you could also write this as a positive number divided by a positive number. Okay, the answer to that is always going to be positive. Okay, when you have a positive number and you divide it by another positive number, you're always going to get a positive answer. Next up, let's imagine we have a positive number and we divide it by a negative number. So we could write that as a positive number divided by a negative number. That will always give us a negative number. Okay, so you should hopefully see similarities between multiplication and division. Now imagine we started with a negative number and we divided that by a positive number. We could write that as this fraction, a negative over a positive, which will always give us a negative answer. And then finally, if we have a negative divided by a negative, which we could write as a negative divided by a negative, divided by a negative, let me rewrite that, a negative divided by a negative, that is always going to give us a positive answer. So just like when we were doing multiplication, if it's the same symbol, so if we've got a positive and a positive, we get a positive answer, and if we have a negative and a negative, we also get a positive answer. Okay. Other than that, when you carry out the division, you just work out what that number is, and then you say, well, we'll do an example in a second. Was one of our numbers positive, or was both our numbers positive, or was one of our numbers, was both our numbers negative, and then you decide whether it's a positive or negative answer. So let's have a quick example. I am going to do 756 divided by -4. Okay, so we've got a positive number divided by a negative number. Okay, so that means our signs are different, which means our answer must give a negative answer. Okay, so all we've got to do is work out the number part of this. So let's do that. We're going to do 756 divided by 4. I'll do that underneath here. 4, 7, 5, 6. 4 into 7 go once with a remainder of 3. 4s into 35 are going to go 8 times with a remainder of 32, so a remainder of 3. And then into 36 go 9 times. Okay, so that means 756 divided by 4 would be 189. As one of them is negative, our answer is going to be negative. So we end up with a negative answer of -189. Okay, so just quickly running through this now. If I gave you the question negative 756 divided by -4, you could look at both of the numbers and say, well, they're both the same sign, they're both negative, so we have to have a positive answer. You could write a plus, but it does not really matter because if there's no plus there, we assume it's positive, and then the number would be the same. Okay, and then lastly, if I gave you this one, 756 divided by 4, you see we have a negative divided by positive. Because they're different signs, we're going to end up with a negative answer. Okay, so the numbers you just use like normal numbers, just work out using bus stop, or you could do chunking if it's a harder question. And then you need to look at them to see if they're positive or negative, and then decide if your answer is going to be positive or negative. Okay, so here when we have one positive, one negative, our answer is negative. Here when we have both being negative, our answer is positive. Here where we have one of them being negative and one being positive, our answer is negative. And then the last case, which you don't really even need to look at, is this. Positive divided by positive is going to give us a positive answer. Okay, so these are the rules to remember. Okay, and then you just need a solid method for dividing two numbers.